What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Hawks-centric podcast, hosted by yours truly, David Lee, aka DLee43. Please make sure you like, subscribe, follow the podcast, share it anywhere you see fit. Hawks coming off a 6-point win tonight against the Indiana Pacers, the first game of a doubleheader. Play them again Saturday. Um, it's been a couple clutch games in a row for the Hawks. This is now their 10th straight game against a playoff opponent. Will be 11th following the game on Saturday. So definitely a great win for us. All things considered, now Tyrese Halliburton did not play. Benedict Mathurin did not play. Because of that, there were some interesting differences in the way the Pacers themselves played, some of the lines the Hawks ran. And so I'm really happy to run through this game with the one and only Woody at NBA Woody on Twitter. How you doing today, bro?
I'm good, bro. Thank you for having me on. I'm smiling, but I'm not as happy as I could be after you guys beat us today. A very different game to what I'm used to, different styles. It was an interesting one, but it was cool. We got to see a lot of different things. Guys got playing time that don't usually get playing time. I got to see Dyson Daniels play well. I'm always happy when Dyson Daniels plays well. I wish it was in a loss, but it is what it is. Thanks for having me on, man.
Of course, thank you for coming on. And to the listeners who may not know Woody, he is from Australia, right? So I think this is going to be a good chance for us Hawks fans to hear from someone who has followed Dyson as his countryman. So without further ado, just want to get into this particular game. I think from the Hawks perspective, Trae had a really great game. He started off really shaky from the floor. At some point, he was 3 for 9. In the second half, he ended up shooting the ball much better. He also had 7 assists in just the fourth quarter alone. I thought that he was in control a lot tonight. The Pacers have a lot of different guys they can throw at him defensively. I've always felt like Aaron Nesmith, Nemhard, like those two together are a tough guy, are a tough duo to contend against defensively. In that second half, Trae had 13 points, 10 assists, shot 50% from the floor, got to the free throw line 5 times, and drew 5 fouls. So he was up to his little crafty tricks. The shooting could have been better in certain stretches, but I thought to have 16 assists, 1 turnover, including the one that wasn't really his fault, went off someone's hand. I thought he had a really good game. So what were your thoughts on Trae's performance? And then from your perspective, who would you highlight from the Pacers?
Trae was great. He's kind of very similar to Hali in some ways. The play style is kind of different. Hali's just constantly in motion. Trae's ball heavy, but the way that he can shoot 40, 45% in a game and still kill you is a very rare trait. You're basically watching every single time he touches the ball. 3 dudes are rushing him. You mentioned Nesmith and Nemba. They do a really good job of bodying up initial pressure, but he's going to find gaps. He's just incredibly slithery. He's so smart, and he makes the right reads. Tonight was a better version than I've seen against us. He's had his troubles against us previously. I've seen some shocking games against us. Tonight he was very, very steady, solid. I think you said under control. That was probably the right word. The 1 turnover wasn't his fault. He was impressive. I think it helps when he's got teammates making shots. Like watching him play with the guys you've got a few dudes who are not really helpful if the ball's not in their hands. Probably one too many. But then tonight you had guys like Georges. We love Georges, close friends with Tyrese. I love him. Some Pacers people don't love him, but I think he's a cool dude. He was killing us. I think Ricochet is going to become that pretty quickly. Like he's got the tools. Dyson as a secondary ball handler. I think as they get better, things are going to get easier for Trae. He was so good tonight. Killed us. Shot 40%, and I felt like he controlled the whole game. So it's like a weird thing that he's capable of doing. Super impressive. I prefer the off nights, but he was good tonight. And down the stretch, 5 for 5 from the line, I think. Like, iced the game, was smart drawing fouls, just did what he's supposed to do. We missed that, not having Tyrese tonight for sure. Pacers, Pascal stepped up for us. I try to give him his flowers wherever I can. He's so underrated. He had, like 35 and 14 or something crazy. 35 and 9 tonight. Super efficient. He just ran out of gas. I think towards the end, he couldn't really fight for position and get to his spots as well. They tried to conserve him at times. He was fantastic. Dudes played well. Your guys just made timely shots and good reads, and Trae protected the ball, especially late.
Yeah, I thought Pascal was amazing. He drew 6 fouls. He was an absolute problem, especially in those minutes where he got the matchup against Niang and Capela. It was a buzzsaw. I think in that first half, he gave us 16.6 of 8 from the field. And then the second half, he gave us 19 on 60% from the field. Again, against the free throw line. His 3-point shot looked really good, too, in the second half, went 3 for 5. he's had a career year from the 3-point line, right? Like he's having a really good year from there.
Yeah, he since moving from Toronto, like life's gotten pretty easy. He kind of figured it out pretty quickly, playing with Tyrese, playing with dudes who make really good reads, but he doesn't have to force anything. So every shot that he takes, the shot quality is just so good. A lot of set threes, not a lot of these in-out dribble contested late shot clock threes that he was shooting in Toronto. He's so reliable, man. As a second star, like could not be more thankful to have him. But yeah, just efficiency-wise, he's just killing it, absolutely killing it. And then tonight he showed he can increase the volume, and it doesn't really change. He's just so good.
Yeah, and I think I was partial to him or like Brandon Ingram, and those are two different types of guys. But archetype wise, when you have these very gifted point guards who can get the ball up and down the floor, they can stretch the floor with their shooting, and they're great playmakers. You want that bigger wing who can take advantage of mismatches, who can screen, who can scale up and down as necessary. And that's why I think I felt a bit of jealousy watching Siakam operate, because that's the type of, ideally down the road, like that's what you can get from a Jalen Johnson or a Regis Shea. Hopefully they can get to that. That's what Siakam is right now. So you could see his value, I think, in tonight's game. I also want to talk about Nesmith. I feel like he's also a super underrated dude. He hits some tough shots, and I think like with his frame, when he plays with confidence and strength, he had an N1 drive, I think, in the first quarter I was really impressed by. He's always solid defensively. Took 9 threes too. Like I don't know if that's typical of him, but I thought he was pretty aggressive. And again, like kind of like scaling up with Ben and Hali out the lineup. What was your thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, he's come good. He kind of struggled early. He had a bunch of injuries. Ankles went like in back to twice in the same game. Missed some time and hasn't really had like the burst to turn corners defensively. Fighting over screens has been like a little iffy compared to what he is like when he's at his best. He's incredible. Kind of like Dyson, where he doesn't really ever get caught out. He's always in a position to make shooting uncomfortable. And then he was a really good shooter in college, was awful in Boston, and then he got to us, and he's just another one who's kind of he's benefiting from the situation, but he's taking full advantage of it. There's been guys who haven't taken advantage. Tonight was a little unusual. Like he played almost 36, 37 minutes or something, chucked up a lot of shots. Some weren't great looks. That's not a normal thing for him, but he's the kind of guy who, in a bind, in a pickle, you can kind of throw him into that role for 5 minutes and he can do it. He did it for 35 tonight, which was good. He's a guy you like to have. I always like having him. I would rather have him than a super talented, freaky player who's real streaky and effort's not there. Nesmith, you're going to get the same thing. And as he gets healthier, he's just getting better, which has led to us playing a lot better. He makes a difference for sure.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's one of those dudes like Terrence Mann for us, like these sort of like very athletic swing men who can be a 2 or a 3. Like those are super valuable guys. You need those guys on your roster. And I don't know, they just kind of reminded me a little bit of one another in tonight's game.
Quite similar, quite similar for sure.
But I want to ask you about this because tonight and almost every night, really, since the season has started and even season prior, Clint Capela has been he's basically been playing for other teams, right? Like I felt like tonight he had on the Pacers jersey, and again, like I have a lot of love for this team. Like I love the Hawks, like I'm very partial and I'm very appreciative of the players too. It's kind of getting to the point with Clint Capela in particular where it's hard to justify him playing. Okay, so I'm just gonna. I know you may have seen some of this tonight, but I'm gonna show you these graphs as well and to the viewers. With Trae Young when he plays with Onyeka Congo. Now, first off, Trae is already he already has issues with his efficiency, especially with the roster around him. There isn't a ton of shooting consistently, especially earlier in the season. So his efficiency around the rim hasn't been great. But if I draw your attention to the middle of the floor, right, you see that 49%, that floater range, that's his bread and butter. And that's a function of Onyeka Congo's ability to screen, but also his threat as a roller, right? So defenses stay more attached to Onyeka, especially in vertical space. So it opens up those lanes. If you look at what he looks like with Capela on the floor, he's 13 percentage points worse in the floater range, and he's 9 percentage points worse at the rim. That's just Trae's efficiency. When you look at the overall Hawks offense, their effective field goal percentage goes down by over 2 points, and they're much less effective at the rim. 57.7% with Capela on, 59.5% with him off. And I say all that to say, In tonight's game, he had a negative 27.8 net rating swing when Capela was on the floor. The Hawks were basically, I think, 11 points. They had a plus 11 with him on and a minus 16 with him off. The other thing, the pace. When Capela was off the floor, our pace was a minus 5.3. So we had a pace of around 99 possession, 99. And then with him off, it was like a 93. And then the defensive rebounding too was also really bad. That's something that Capela has always sort of leaned on, like his rebounding ability. And it wasn't necessarily there, and it hasn't been there, especially with the long rebounds. And so as I bring up this clip, I want to ask you just one question too, because do Pacers fans have a similar gripe with like the non-Miles Turner minutes? Because when I saw Thomas Bryant, I know you guys have tried to figure out, because Thomas Bryant was a late addition in the season, right? Because Wiseman was ACL.
Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson both tore Achilles 12 months. Yeah.
So both of those guys have long-term injuries. You end up picking up Thomas Bryant. He was giving you serviceable minutes in the first half. At some point, I saw him take a three, an air ball. Rick Carlisle immediately called for Miles Turner. So I was just curious, do you guys have a similar frustration with the backup center minutes?
Thomas Bryant has been fantastic for us, but again, you know what you're getting. He's kind of streaky. I think he does do well. He shoots the ball pretty well. I think it's kind of by like doing nothing, he has an advantage over Capela, is understanding space. I feel like Trae's a genius when he gets into those little pockets around the free throw line and he's weaving and he's making the read. Do I throw the floater? Do I take a little half step? Do I dribble in and out? Like, what's my decision going to be? I feel like he's on different brainwaves with Capela now. It used to look good. I'm not sure what's sort of fallen away. Where Thomas Bryant, I think, makes good decisions. He's also making good spacing. This picture is really good because this is pretty much how our half-court offense will look for most of the time. Pascal will try and fight to the low block. He'll get there, find a mismatch. Where you see Thomas Bryant sort of cannoning to the rim, you might see that from Miles 2 out of 10 possessions. The rest of them, it's spacing. And then you got to fight the decision. Do I drop and give help? Because that's going to be great to slow down Pascal because we've seen what he can do. He'll dominate. Miles just standing at the top of the key, just being a presence there. He's the number one efficiency shooter from the top of the three-point line. It's a great weapon. Whether he's shooting 5 a game, 10 a game, it's kind of dependent on what the defense gives us. I think it's a huge problem because you look at your complementary pieces like Okongwu and Capela, they're not really going to play at the same time too often. Jalen Johnson, he does a lot of good work closer to the rim. He can shoot, capable shooter, but he needs to be making smart decisions around the rim. Dyson Daniels, again, isn't in love with the three ball. He needs to get in and play closer to the rim. I think if you were to have someone who provided space just by not being there, being a screen and pop guy more often, which he just is incapable of doing, opens up things not just for Trae, not just for Dyson Daniels, not just for Jalen Johnson, the whole team, everybody. Ricochet can just sit in a corner and all of a sudden he's getting 5 clean looks every single game just because guys cannot be, sitting out and just waiting to rotate. Thomas Bryant's numbers, like the advanced numbers, there's a gap. There's a big gap from when he's on the court as opposed to when Miles is. I don't think all of that is purely on them. I think Miles is fantastic, but I think a lot of that has to do with our starting 5 is really good, and there is a slight drop-off to our bench. Our bench is great, one of the best in the league, but there's going to be a drop-off regardless, especially when they're playing against starting minute sort of lineups,
No, that's a lot of good points there. The thing about Miles, too, like, it's just so hard to find a center who can space the floor and not be a complete liability, right? So it's like
100%,
it's the three-point shot is coming along, but it's not reliable or high volume enough for defenses to really respect it, right? But I think hopefully, and we'll look at some clips too as we talk about this, his sort of spacing comes from the passing. So if he can operate from the top of the key and he hit Dyson on those back cuts a couple of times, that can stretch the defense out as well. So this possession, I wanted to highlight just some of Clint Capela's deficiencies. Like, I think what you mentioned too, like where him and Trae haven't had that same sort of that rhythm and that cadence. I just think Capela's movement isn't as good. So here he comes on a late double, right? But so is Trae at the same time. And Ben Shepherd, who's a great shooter, shot comes out, Niang comes with the closeout. And Capela just isn't really ready for the rebound. Like, you can't fumble that. And unfortunately for him, he gave up multiple rebounds like that, like these long rebounds that either he wasn't prepared for or it came out of his hands. And I thought that you guys did a really great job taking advantage of these long rebounds. Especially like I think I kept hearing the announcers. I don't know what the numbers are for you guys on the season, but I don't remember you guys being a dominant offensive rebounding team.
We're not a good rebounding team at all. It's a big flaw. So this would make you more upset about Capela giving these up for sure.
No, definitely. It was definitely frustrating, and that's a big shot from Siakam. And so like that's one of a couple examples where I felt like just the lack of movement ability, or just the ability to actually move on the floor, made it a little bit tough for the Hawks. And then you also complicated, like I know you said you love Niang. I've grown to love him as well. One thing that you're really going to struggle with him on the floor is just the movement, right? So it's like he's obviously great floor spacer, and he can do all these things in terms of like actually being able to shoot the ball. Some of the defensive stuff you just have to live with, right? But when you have Capela on the floor as opposed to Niang, now you have two guys who kind of struggle in space. And so this is where it's like, especially and I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like as the center, right? And maybe this is on Niang too for not communicating it, but he has to be more aware that like Siakam's behind him. You guys also did a really good job multiple times posting early, forcing mismatches, forcing cross matches. But Capela just isn't really he's not committing to trying to help. Then when he does come to help, like he probably fouls Pascal there too. And it's just like it's not consequential. So it's not just the move, it just sometimes feels like he's not paying attention. And I don't know, it's such a drastic difference in the way the Hawks are playing on both ends, with Onyeka on the floor and with Capela on the floor, that it feels like you're almost waving the white flag in these minutes. And also like I'll pull up the numbers but the minutes with him and Niang are like really, really bad. Like they're I think this a negative 19 with those two on the floor. And it's not just
you kind of turned the game at the end too. Like Okongwu took the Siakam matchup, and then combination of Siakam was tired and Okongwu gave him nothing. Instead of just easy, like get down the court a little quicker, Okongwu just cut it, and then the pace is stagnated. So yeah, these numbers are crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you look at the splits, it's like Niang by himself, and that means when Capela's off the floor, he's playing with Onyeka or Muhammad Gay. It's a +7. But when they're playing together, they're a negative 19.
Yeah.
They're awful offensively, and they're even worse defensively. And it's just ideally, right, it makes sense. Like, okay, you have a shooter and you have a guy who can't space the floor. They should complement one another. But to your point, in that fourth quarter, they flipped it, right? So they started the game off with Muhammad Gay starting next to Quin Capela. In the fourth quarter, they closed with Georges Niang and Onyeka Okongwu after Gay played with Capela in the beginning. You also, so I know you said like some of the Thomas Bryant stuff, it's something you come to expect. I think another sort of thing that like Hawks fans have tried to think of in general is when you're working with like a really dynamic point guard, right? Like there's really it's kind of tough to expect like a backup point guard who's like going to be able to replicate that same impact, right? Like TJ McConnell, as good as he is, you're not expecting him to go out there and be Hali. But I think the benefit that you guys have is that he can still push the pace, right? Like he can still somewhat play Pacer style basketball because of his skills as a backup point guard. I know this game in particular with the play style was a little bit different, but when McConnell's on the floor, do you feel like you guys play that much different? I know there's some of the spacing stuff with Hali, but like, how does that feel?
Yeah, it is different. The game still runs through McConnell a lot. We're getting better at splitting lineups where we have one of Siakam, one of Hali on the court. It's a different version. The energy doesn't change, which I think is big. A lot of the times I go to a backup point guard and they become cautious. The game slows down a bit. TJ comes in and you just feel it as a boost, as opposed to, our main guy's out. Now we're holding on for dear life, which is rare because the gap is huge. Tyrese is insane, like just a freaky human being, freaky player, and McConnell is your very good backup. You should feel a drop off, but the play style is different. Tonight, the picture you got up here, Jarris Walker hasn't played for quite a while. Has been played in the G League team. He's going to become more of a ball handler, more of an initiator. It does change we go more heavy on Siakam post-ups, spreading the ball, and then McConnell creates. When it's Tyrese, the ball flies. Like the ball is just constantly in motion. It's a very different thing. It feels like we go away from that and we become a little more organized when he's not on the court, because there's less magic, there's less freedom of creation. It's just, let's try and do the right thing, take advantage of the mismatches and go from there.
Yeah. I love Jarrett's pre-draft, so I was excited to see him get some burn. Like I was really high on him. So I was excited to see that. This is what I was pointing out, right? So this pairing, you have Onyeka guarding Pascal Siakam here. They start off the game with Muhammad Gay guarding him. Oh, they have started off the game with Muhammad Gay on Miles Turner, and then Onyeka matched up with Siakam. And so that's the try and help against like the post heavy stuff that Siakam can do. He's super strong, super skilled there. He's going to hit some of those shots, but it's obviously more advantageous to having, like someone like Niang against him, right? And it felt like we're going to run through just a couple of shots from the fourth quarter. I think anytime like if it's Siakam on the floor, like obviously you can't ride him every possession. But like from the Hawks perspective, you're going to take a Thomas Bryant pick and pop three over any time that Siakam touches it, right? So in a lot of ways, but again, you see that offensive rebound collected from you guys. Like again, like I thought there was a very clear emphasis from the Pacers guards to crash the offensive glass. Have you seen that, or do you think that's more so like a matchup thing tonight against the Hawks?
Yeah, no, we as a team had like major issues rebounding the ball, where we just did not create extra possessions and we just got killed. Mathurin was kind of singled out. It was like a team message, but he was virtually benched because he didn't do anything other than score. And then the emphasis really came on his rebounding. Completely changed him as a player. He's a different beast now because he creates the extra 5-6 possessions. Our bigs, Miles, my favorite player in the world, love him to bits. He's never been an incredible rebounder. The advanced numbers are fine. Like we used to have Sabonis, who's considered a great rebounder. He is a great rebounder, but there was no difference really in terms of team rebounding. But we do rely heavily in terms of guards crashing the boards. If we don't do that, we just get 10 points, 15 points behind really, really quickly. We didn't do that through the first 25 games. We were 10 and 15. I think we've been the second or third best team in the league since, and the rebounding's been a huge thing for it. But saying that, we're still not a great rebounding team, by any means. Yeah.
I thought you guys did a good job tonight. Also, I loved Jarrett's touch on this. I was like, that's a really nice shot, feathery touch, fading back. I know he hasn't had a consistent amount of burn, and he hasn't necessarily been like maybe what Pacers fans have expected, especially like that high in the draft. I still believe in him. Like I haven't watched a ton of him in Indiana, but I do hope that he can eventually get to that like sort of level. Also, I think just in general, the mid-range, I didn't realize the mid-range was this much of your game, or maybe this is more like a play style thing without Halliburton. Yeah. But it felt like, I mean, Nembhard got there. Of course, Siakam gets there. You feel like has that been more of an emphasis this season? Because I felt like I didn't see that much.
For Pascal, absolutely. Nembhard for sure loves to get to that spot. Pascal gets there whenever he wants. It's just free, sort of, 55% from that area. He gets that shot every time. But then the other dudes on the court, Jarris doesn't play a lot. When he does, he'll go there. He's getting better at it. I really like Jarris. I have high hopes for him. He's just the 11th guy in a 10th man rotation. I think he's going to be too talented to leave out in a year. So that'll change. Nembhard for sure. But then you look at the other guys. Ben Shepherd is pretty much exclusively a 3-and-D guy. Fantastic. Really like his energy, and he's a good shooter. Hali lives pretty heavily outside the 3-point line or at the rim. Does settle occasionally. Very, very rare. Miles, 3-pointers. Neesmith, same thing. Tonight was a little different. They relied on him more. We're not a really heavy dependent mid-range team. We're just fly with the ball, crazy speed, get to the rim, drive and kick type stuff. Tonight was different. It was a different play style. We'll see that when we play you guys in a couple of days. Regardless of what the result is, you'll see a different play style if Tyrese plays for sure.
I think you see here the just difference with like having Miles on versus Thomas Bryant. Like Niang doesn't have to press up against him. Ball doesn't pop as much here.
I think also, like you talk about Niang and Capela, they're both like slow-footed, but then you add Trae to the mix. Like it's no secret. Trae is not like a good defender by any means. He's generally in the right spot, but short arms. He's gotten better at not having those bad gambles, but he has his deficiencies. You can have one or two of those guys and have a competent defense. You can't have three. If you have three, then you've got people rotating late. Every rotation's a bit later. Eventually, it's a wide open shot or just a layup. So I think, it's a big problem. Okongwu changed the game purely because he was in the right spot at the right times, physical enough to hold Pascal. Capela is just constantly now in the wrong spot. I thought he was a smart defender. I don't know if I misread that. When I say misread that, I thought that 4 years ago. I think a big thing that is also frustrating is he's getting paid $21 million and giving you nothing. Thomas Bryant is getting paid 1.5 and giving you like a decent burn. So that is another thing where you're like, every time you watch it, you're like, oh my gosh, we could have two role players giving us good value for the price of this one guy giving us negative, playing against us, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you literally just said everything in my head. That's my exact thoughts watching Thomas Bryant was like, we're paying Clint Capela $20 million for this. And the good thing is he's expiring, right? But to your point too, like you can survive with two of Niang or Trae or Capela. And that's why in the fourth quarter, you have Onyeka on the floor with Niang. You also have Terrence Mann and Zachary Rizachet. So these two guys are super active. They're going to rotate. They're going to be communicative. And then when you go to the next defensive possession, now you see that Clint Capela comes on the floor, Trae still on the floor, but now you have Mohamed Gay out there instead of Georges Niang. And that's something that we've been begging Quin. I think he's aware of it, which is why I think he ended up making this decision to switch to it. And now you see the added sort of mobility here from Mohamed Gay. If this is Niang closing out, I mean, you've seen
it's
it playing.
It's a blow by.
It's a blow by. This is either a poster dunk on top of Capela or it's going to be an easy layup. But Gay's able to stay attached. And then Capela can engage him. And then Mohamed Gay transitions directly into boxing out Miles Turner.
Yeah. And also, like Terrence Mann and Rizachet don't even bother taking a step in. Like they don't. There's no drive and kick element there. Like because they trust that Gay's going to be able to stay step for step.
Yep. And so it keeps that ball from rotating and ping ponging around. And that's just by putting guys out there who are in a better position to sort of cover up that sort of drive and kick game. And I love the technique here from Mohamed Gay, hands high, keeping his feet active, and then he opens up his hip. He's able to run him off the line into Capela. That was a really tough layup.
That was a good little switch over by Capela too. Made the right read, which was nice. Yeah. We'll give him one thing, I guess, from this game.
Yeah, but he can, when he can do at least, all I'm asking for him is to be there and be 6'10". I'm not asking for you to go palm the shot. I just need you to be in the right place at the right time. And he was able to do it that time. And also like, it's not just that he's bad, which I think he is, but it's like when he's asked to cover up for everyone else, that's too much, and that's 100%. Understandable.
Yeah.
At his advanced age, you need guys who can just move a little bit quicker. Like, again, Obi killed us, I think earlier when we played you in February. So you see the speed here, like that. Even Niang's, even Mohamed Gay's length sort of dissuades Jarris from throwing that, I think, a little bit. And then Jarris, I think he knocks his shot down too. I just love
Obi's also not the same player when Tyrese isn't on the court.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you'll see that a lot of these a lot of the attention goes to Obi, which is really nice, just because Tyrese finds him in weird pockets. Like watching Jarris also, you can just see the touches there, the promises there. Defensively, he has some really cool tools. I'm very high on him. I would be shattered if we moved him for a win now player who's just a good role player. I'd be shattered. I think he's got so much talent.
Yeah, I'm there with you too. So then we see Capela switch. Honestly, not a bad rep from him. That's the threat of Miles Turner, right? So Terrence Mann can't stay attached because he knows he has to peel off the Turner because of the type of shooter he is. And then Nesmith, that's a smooth step back, but I think Clint did a pretty good job clearing it up. Important thing too, though, is you have Mohamed Gay for the rebounding. So Niang's a pretty good positional rebounder, but some of the stuff is like, the longer rebounds, the stuff he has to run towards, maybe this goes out of his sort of catch radius. So again, just another reason why you got to keep those two guys somewhat separate. I think this one, I think TJ ends up missing this one. He also, so I think that he missed the one near the end of the game too. And then here you see, now you've got Onyeka and Niang on the floor together. They're defending a pick and roll, and you see the space that Nembhard's able to create. Yeah, it's just I think Nembhard's he's very underrated as a creator in general. But I just think it's it's a tough task to ask for Niang against someone like that. He ends up leaving it a little bit short. Then here you see Siakam go to work in the post. To your point, here's the 5-out spacing, right? It's a little bit different. Of course, you don't have Halliburton on the floor. It's TJ McConnell.
Yeah.
So it allows the Hawks to shrink the spacing a little bit, and also like TJ is probably ideally we want him in the corner here, and so Siakam, he's able to knock that shot down. You see Onyeka kind of shakes his head. You gotta live with that.
Yeah.
That good player making a good shot. Let me see the next boom back in the post again. We see TJ creeping in the dunker spot. The double comes. The dig comes from Dyson. Nearly gets a hand on it.
And then you see the recovery, like Dyson's so special that he can get all the way both ends. And then by the time Nembhard's in the paint, he's kind of, oh shit, I've beaten one. Let me get back under control. Oh, look, like that there, that play should be dead. Like you look at that, his energy is towards Siakam. Nemby set, hit him in the pocket. That should be a catch 3. The switch is crazy. And Niang's probably the next one to rotate to Nembhard. Doesn't even have to. It's nuts. I love Dyson Daniels. Anytime I can gas him up. Like, look at that. Look at that from where he is.
He's
shifting
already
sideways.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
like
awesome.
He's been such a joy to watch. And then like Niang can even, he was headed that way because normally you'd have to do that.
Yeah.
And then
if that's anyone else on the court, Niang's got to close that out. Broken play. Guys are confused and pissed off at each other. But it's weird to have a guard that can like cover deficiencies. Like that's just not a normal thing. And he's pretty special.
It's very congested in the paint. Very good contest from Caris LeVert. And then Onyeka is able to secure the rebound, in the mobility here. Then you get to see Hawks guarding a little bit more space. Caris does a really good job getting over the screen here. I love that he kicks his foot out here to get over Pascal's.
Yeah.
Gets the deflection. Then he gambles, and I was like, oh my gosh! Because I don't know if you saw, you probably didn't see this clip against Milwaukee. He gambled for a loose ball against Kuzma, and Kuzma picked it up and shot a 3 for the logo and drilled it, and we basically lost the game off that.
Yeah.
And Caris sometimes has those tendencies, right? And so he gambles here, doesn't get to it, but I think the most important, he just busts he runs as fast as he can to get back to TJ. And now that advantage that was created by him being out of position, Trae picks it up. Trae picks up Andrew. You see Dyson bump off to Aaron Nesmith. Niang was hustling over to TJ, but then LeVert is there, and now that marginal advantage isn't created, and it's a tougher step back for Nembhard.
A big thing there too, generally, if that was to happen and it was Tyrese who picked up the ball, just hypotheticals, but if Tyrese was on the court, picks up the ball, Capela's on the floor anywhere, Tyrese makes that read, Capela's there, let me swing the ball there, he's going to be flat-footed, we'll create something. Where this was Nembhard picks up the ball, he's got 5 or 6 seconds at most by the time it's in his hands. He's looking left, and it's like Richard shows there. Niang is the one you would want to target, but his deep corner, LeVert, is already reading what he's got to fix. That was a nice rotation. And we just stagnated. You don't see a lot of this at the end of the games from us. Tyrese, I think he leads the league in efficiency on both 2s and 3s in closeout situations, and we sorely missed it. But a lot of what we kind of ran into was forced by defensive switches, adjustments and stuff. You gambled once and LeVert fixed it. You got away with it. So, yeah.
I thought this was a big shot from Aaron.
Yeah, this was huge. Yeah, that was massive. He's capable of that sort of stuff too. But again, like it felt like a very random offense to finish the game. Pascal was tired. Nemby was even tired. And it was just whoever can get the ball and create something. We went away from us. You guys were just better. And Trae showed how important it is to just be under control to finish the game. Huge free throws down the stretch from him and Onyeka as well. Another thing that Onyeka does really well. You just can't have Clint on the court for. That was cool to see.
I'm glad you recognize that too, because it's the defensive versatility, but it's the ability to finish the free throws too and finish around the rim effectively. And here's the other thing too, like you see that 5-out spacing, it's just not as effective with TJ on the court. Ultimately, probably his biggest limitation. I think he's so good as a driver, such a great passer, such a great playmaker. He's always in the right place, but the shot ultimately just kind of gives him a little bit of a difficulty in the clutch because the Hawks, here they're going to rotate aggressively off of him. Like you see how much Dyson is off of him. He's standing in the paint, ready to meet Miles Turner. And then Onyeka's only concern with Pascal Siakam, right? So
he's made those this year, but decision making, like just as a team, if you're going to leave one of these 5 guys,
Yeah.
It's probably got to be TJ. You live with the result. I think he's shooting it like at a ridiculous percentage for him. But again, that is a lot of those are coming in these situations. I shooting 34 or 32%, not as good. 40 last year and 44% the year before, which was very surprising. This year he's been down. He shoots a lot of those set shots. As a Pacers fan, I'm not looking for that to be the outcome. Down 5 with the game on the line. That's not where I want to be. This is probably more where I want to be, but look how well Onyeka sort of plays it.
What I like about this possession, so this is something I think the Hawks have gotten way better at, something Trae's gotten way better at. So in the clutch, right, they're going to try and push these pressure points. Trae's always going to be one of those pressure points. So Miles Turner comes to set a step-up screen on Trae to get Nesmith curling off or like flaring for a 3. But what he does instead, he's going to drive down and try to walk Trae down to the paint. You've got a sliver of a window here. Trae recognizes this. He's like, Karras, you pick him up. Karras, you come get him. I'll put off to Nembhard. And now, instead of there being that dump off to Miles Turner, for now Siakam has to create out of the post, and it goes in and out. And so I think this is the growth from this team defensively as a unit, but from Trae as well. It's like, don't just accept being posted up. Like rely on your teammates, speak, communicate. And he's able to get himself out of a tough situation, and then they're able to pass off assignments here.
It's also good that like Karras didn't question it for a second. There will be guys who they're slow-brained, slow-footed, and then that's all you need in the NBA, just a guy to half guess and take 1.5 seconds. And then you like if Trae does that and Karras looks at him and they have that conversation for half a second longer, that's just Miles catches it, dunks it. Like Karras, he says it, identifies it. His left hand, I think, you almost feel like he's reaching for Miles there. Am I coming to help that? So they're making the same reads. Pretty smart. It was good.
I think Pascal probably could have still got the pass in here. Like there was a little bit of a window. It would have been tough. I think Miles also probably should have planted there a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think so too.
Good connectivity from the Hawks though. They passed that off. And here's the thing too. Like this is not a team. Also, TJ McConnell makes me so nervous. I hate seeing him around inbounds. When I saw him at the end of the quarter, I knew he was going to make it too. You cannot do anything lazy. You cannot relax. You can't relax with him on the court. He just blows through, gets the ball, and flips it back over his head to get it to Nesmith. He's a special dude, man. Like
it's like 2 out of 3 games you're going to get one of those from him. It's so cool, and it's just at timely moments too. He saves it. I feel like he could go for it a lot more, but he saves it for when you kind of need a little boost, which is also really cool. This is just a special on-ball defense. Like you think about the size difference. Well, it's Dyson's 6'8", but he's skinny. Pascal's 6'9", 225, 230, grown man, and Dyson just shifty. Siakam's incredible, but to stay with him, still very, very impressive. I love Pascal, especially late games. We saw it last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how shifty he is, man. Like this is not normal for a 6'9" dude, and he's able to stay on balance, gather through the contact, and then finish through the contest. That's really, really tough shot, man.
He could easily drop like 3-4% efficiency and average like 32 points a game. Like he picks his spots. He's so crafty with it. I see a lot of like Jarris has similar handles. Not that like it's a crazy jump to ask for, but if one day he could develop half of what Pascal has for a bag, like that would be just. I feel like, you know what? Also similar play styles, Karras LeVert and Pascal, except Pascal's just bigger, longer. Maybe a little bit better touch, a little less streaky, but he's so crafty for his size. Not what you expect. Super strong too.
Yeah, and then before I finish up with asking you just a couple of questions about the Pacers and some of the Hawks stuff, I do want to show a couple of clips just on Onyeka, his passing. He only has 2 assists, but I felt like he's getting some really special chemistry with Dyson Daniels, and it makes sense because Dyson is such a smart player that he can just sort of like understand where some advantages are being created for him, right? And Onyeka too, as the center, he knows that, Miles is the shot blocker on the floor. When he's guarding him, the paint is going to be a little bit easier to score on. And defenses also have to respect the fact that Onyeka can dribble over and flow that into a handoff. So as he dribbles over, Nesmith is getting prepared to go over that screen. Instead, it's a back door. And these are not easy passes. Like he's leading guys every single night. I thought that was a really nice touch from Dyson for the left-hand scoop on the run, gathering off 2 feet. And then here's the other one. So you get to see him sort of operate from the top of the key. The way Dyson sort of hops for a second, like he's hopping like he's going to go into that handoff. You see TJ shift his body weight just a little bit. TJ, again, very smart defender. He's going to stick his hands out. You see Miles has his hands out. There's a tiny window there. But Onyeka's going to lead him. It's not just a normal bounce pass. Like he's going to lead him. The ball's going to go right here. And Dyson is wide open for the dunk. So
there's so many guys that would just hold the ball there and think, nah, that gap's not big enough. Let me just I don't want to get in trouble. Let me hand off, play safe. Dyson's going to get better at that too, finishing left hand, right hand. That is a really, really nice pass. I don't think Quin Capela could make that pass. I don't think
Quin Capela would tear ACL and probably triple the ball if he tried to do that.
I don't know what the ligaments in the arms are, but those are probably poppers. That's a really, Onyeka's been cool. He's also played with really smart players, like even from high school and stuff, playing with Lonzo. And he's been that. It's hard to teach a guy to become that. Where I think his entire junior career coming up, and now he's in the NBA. He wasn't a star off the rip. He's had to learn to be that. He's kind of instinctive. It's a hard thing to teach. Sabonis is the other one coming from Europe and stuff, like that European heritage and watching guys like that and trying to be like that. Those instincts are rare for a big. Miles doesn't really have that, but it's a different kind of player. It's cool that Onyeka has that.
Yeah, but I think there's different types of versatile bigs. Like for Miles, he's versatile offensively in terms of the spacing and the shooting. But for Onyeka, he can bring a little bit of that offensive impact by being really great around the rim and with the passing. But you mentioned something about like some of like the formative years, like playing junior basketball. I want to know, like from the Australian perspective, what is it with the floater with the Australians? Because it feels like between Josh Giddey, Patty, Dante, Dyson, a lot of these guys, I feel like they really opt for touch over like blasting to the basket. Is that something that is like heavily pushed over in Australia?
It's kind of given to you when you grow up playing. It's by far the shot that is going to be the most high percentage, easiest to get to. We also don't have a lot of freak athletes that come from here. Like Dante Exum was one, Dyson, pretty freaky. We're getting more now. There's a few young kids coming up that are really freaky, but we also play a lot of zone as the defense, especially in junior basketball. Like kids in America, kids all over the world, they grow up and you're going to play man to man. You're not going to understand how to play man to man. You're not going to understand how to beat it. Kids from the moment I started playing basketball, 2-3 zone, 3-2 zone. That's it. That's all you learn for years and years. So there's always that pocket, and we don't have any defensive 3-second rules, anything like that in juniors. So you're going to have a center who's just going to camp in the lane. You have to make the choice pretty much growing up. Am I going to jump into him and take that contact and finish? Or am I just going to take 20 floaters and make half of them? And I think that touch comes from that. There's also, we call it hero ball. I don't know if that's the term you use, but it's kind of almost forbidden in Australian basketball. There's no just chucking up shots. You can be the best player in the world. If you're taking bad shots, you're getting kicked off the court. Fundamentals are everything. Uncle Drew style, use the paint, use the top of the backboard, use everything. The float is huge. They just love that.
So, and it explains a lot about his game. I think it's particularly the part about like being in that pocket. I think he's very comfortable, in the short roll or getting to his floater. It's like his biggest weapon for sure. I'll say like for me personally, when I played middle school ball or like AAU ball, high school ball, we definitely ran zone. But I would probably say like we were probably most comfortable in man, and we definitely didn't have. I can't remember if we had like a 5 sec. I feel like maybe we did, but maybe that definitely explains things about him. And I feel like Dyson's a lot more athletic than like I even realized too in terms of like above the rim stuff. I've seen him get to a couple of dunks, not on this particular one, but there was one against the Knicks where he really got above the rim. And sometimes I feel like if he was able to convert some of those floaters into at the rim layups, like he may be even more effective. But the floater is so good that I don't know if I want to I don't think they should discourage him from taking it or anything. But some of the on ball stuff, like his spin move it reminds me of Siakam a little bit, where it's like very quick, almost premeditated. Like as soon as he gets a guy leaning one way, he's just gonna spin. Here he spins away from the pressure too, and he gets to that one pocket for the float game.
Like when that left foot first lands on the spin, so many dudes are off balance. I feel like he's floating. Siakam's a bit like that. Like this one, right in the middle, kind of when he steps with his left, not this one, but when the left plants, guys lose their balance and drop. You watch him when that left foot plants, and it's just like watching him. He's floating. His momentum's the same. His balance is insane. Like this one, not that one there, right foot, then left foot. When he plants that, you expect him to dip. Look how balanced he is. Just core strength, crazy. Doesn't break momentum. And Neesmith's strong as hell. Like if he was half dipped off that left foot, Neesmith would just collapse him. It'd be a folded, forced shot that would look ugly. But yeah, the touch is crazy. And he's tall. People forget how tall he is. He's like 6'7", 6'8", I'm pretty sure. Huge dude. Yeah.
Here you see those instincts that just sort of float in the zone. So this is man, but Neesmith is locked in on Trae. And so he kind of lose. You see the look on his face. He lost Dyson for a second. He's like, oh, where did he go? And Dyson gets right into that again. To your point, that's sort of like
smart dude.
Very
smart. A lot of people think you just have to be able to shoot threes to play off Trae, but then if you have a guy who can just simply make nice little cuts, nice touch around the room, that's going to open things up for Trae because dudes are going to be looking over their shoulder for that as well.
Yep, because Trae will also always be able to find them. So from what you've seen from him, like, what do you think of his growth as an offensive player? Because I watched a lot of him in New Orleans, and I was in love with his game. I've wanted the Hawks to trade for him for a long time. I didn't necessarily. I don't know if you knew how much he'd improved in terms of points per game. He's got the 11th biggest boost in his points per game this season, like relative to last season. So he's had a really, really impressive year. Even more so like on the offensive end. Like I think most people kind of knew he was special defensively, but the offensive stuff has been really remarkable. So what have you thought?
My dad's a Pelicans fan. Of all teams, he picked the New Orleans Pelicans to follow. So he liked Dyson Daniels. We liked Dyson Daniels. The Pacers were like looked at to draft him at one point. There was a cool conversation, a few dinners, a few conversations got to hear about how close it was, which was kind of cool. The jump and like I feel like the way the Hawks play, you guys aren't like a super team that is just got it all together, but you play the right way offensively. New Orleans just don't. It's just no spacing. It's dead space. Their bigs don't shoot it. Their wings don't shoot it. There is no room for a tweener guard to get his own in that team. We're here. It's like there's his gap. You could play the two, play defense. Trae is going to make the right reads every single time, and there's going to be gaps for him to take advantage of. And we didn't know if he was smart enough to do it because he just never had the chance to do it. Now you see it. Like he is just constantly in motion. That is getting better. That set shot is getting a lot better.
Way better.
I think he'd be up to like 14, 15 a game at the moment. It would be my guess. What's he at now? And I feel like that could easily jump to a steady 17, 18 as your third option doing the right things. And you couple that with just crazy defense that covers up for a lot of Trae's deficiencies down the other end. Complementary plays at everything. That's why I love Miles with Tyrese. I feel like it's the same thing. Everything that Trae struggles at, you get covered up and you get fixed, and just opens up so much for him. I love Dyson Daniels. I hope he somehow flips the narrative and wins all defensive player of the year, because when Wemby gets back, it's probably him forever. So this is his chance this year. Doubt it, but we'll see.
He's at 14 points per game. He's shooting 34% from three. It's been really, really fascinating to see him continue to grow. The assists per game as well. Like over his last 20, he's averaging 15.7 rebounds, 5 assists, and of course those 3 steals as well. So like, I just checked the qualifying minutes played and games played. When you look at players who have played at least 40 games this season, the only players who have seen a bigger increase in their points per game are Franz, James Harden, Norman Powell, and Malik Beasley. So very, very
and you would
impressive.
not for a second think that Dyson Daniels was forced a single shot this year. That's the other thing. Those guys are chucking up shots. I'm so happy to see him develop. It's cool to watch. I wish he was in Indiana. It's not to be. That's okay. Maybe we'll trade. How many first-round picks did you get with him as well in that trade?
You got 2, I'm pretty sure.
Ridiculous.
But it's hilarious that they gave us picks for that. Oh, they did give us 2 firsts. Yes, they gave us the Lakers first as well, and then I think
nice.
Which is nice. So I want to ask you too. There's a little bit of animosity between our fan bases on the Trae Hali debate point. I will admit, me personally, I was a little bit unfavorable towards Halliburton in previous years. And it was less about Halliburton and more so I felt like the coverage wasn't being equally distributed, or he wasn't getting the same treatment Trae did. That's all it was. It wasn't I think Halliburton stinks, right? But I think I've come to the point, like, especially if I've learned more and more about basketball, I can appreciate different styles of play, right? So we talked about a little bit. Both of these guys are very dynamic point guards. They're great. They're both great passers. They're a little bit different, right? And so I think what Halliburton has done over the last couple of games, I didn't really realize how good of a season he had turned this into. He started off a little bit slow. He's having a much better season as of, I think, like the last 30 or so games. Like, he's been on a tear. Where do you sort of view him in terms of like relation to other young guards? Like, do you feel like he has, if you, I'm not going to ask you to give like a top 5 guard list, but like, just like, how do you generally feel about him in terms of like his sort of, I'm not forgetting the word, like sort of like his counterparts, his position and age?
I think that the Trae level is a good one, Jalen Brunson level. I just think thing I think that separates Hali is when he's on the floor. I've said it. I think I wrote it. I was trying to find the tweet just as you were talking about it then. I said there's very few players basically that can shoot 40% in a game, run the whole game, where your team's going to get good looks every single time. I was critical of Trae at times. I think I just got caught up in the conversation a while ago as well. It's a very easy thing to get caught up in. You see hot takes that bait you and you jump on it. It is what it is. But Trae is a very smart player. I think Hali's protection of the ball, decision-making, and the fact that when he's on the court, we never get a bad look. I think that's what separates him. He's not a ball-heavy point guard, so it's very hard to compare him. I looked at the play styles last year. We played the Knicks a lot, played them in 7 games. I feel like it's so hard to gauge because Bronson and Tyrese, you could easily say, like, oh, they played a similar level. You know, both superstars, both running teams, but it's so different. Jalen's a ball-heavy guy who's going to grind you out, slowest pace of play in the league, where Tyrese can touch the ball twice for half a second on an entire possession and just break you down. Like, you are just fumbling and you're all over the place and creates that. Trae, again, is different. He's a guy who's very ball-heavy, but he's going to make the right read and kill you. It's so hard to gauge. I personally think he's the best point guard in the East at the moment. It's a personal thing. I think you would pick Trae. I think Pistons fans would probably pick Cade. I just think Tyrese offers so much. The first 25 games this year, disaster. He was terrible, but he's hurt. He's been hurt. He's still hurt, missed today. He has his hip injuries. He has his hamstring injuries. He is constantly one morning waking up with back spasms away from having the worst game you've ever seen. And you won't know because he just plays anyway, which is a great thing, but it can also hurt you and it can cause frustration. When he's healthy, there's a reason he went to the Eastern Conference Finals in his first run, his first trying it. Like, he's a special player, absolutely special. I won't do a top 5 list, but I'll give you a top 1. I'll put Hali at number 1 for point guards in the East.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And the beautiful thing is there's so much talent in the league right now, especially at the guard position, like just in the East itself. I mean, Cade, Trae, Jalen, and Halliburton is a really great group of guys in terms of like whatever you may actually gravitate towards. To your point too, like over the last 10 games, Halliburton is at 22.2 points, 10.8 assists. He's shooting. He hasn't missed a free throw, shooting 51% from 3. So he's on an absolute tear. I think, from my perspective, I think Halliburton honestly might be an even better shooter than Trae. He may be more efficient, but I think sometimes his impact is more relative to how aggressive he is, right? So like when he was hurt and hampered, you could really see a difference in how well the Pacers were playing. And that's any player in the league, right? Like if his scoring aggression isn't there, if he can't put the ball in the basket, then teams will really play Halliburton as a passer. And I think that's when you can sometimes see his limitations. And I think a lot of that, again, was the hamstring stuff. He couldn't get to a step back. He didn't have the burst off the dribble. So I think when you see him fully healthy and he can get to his spots, he's a completely different player, of course.
Yeah, I think Austin Rivers spoke about it a little bit. He called it crab dribbles, where Hali gets caught up and he'd go side to side, not create anything, take a bad shot. When he's healthy, those crab dribbles, he's gone. He's exploding past people. He's just torturing people. When he's not healthy, you see it. He gets stuck. The shooting thing, numbers aren't the whole story, but he's had, I think, 4 or 5 seasons where he shot 40% or better from 3. Which is just absolutely insane. Trae, I don't think's ever done it. Shot quality has a lot to do with it. Trae's an incredible shooter. I don't think Hali gets the credit he should for how good of a shooter he is. He's unbelievable. It's the hitch, it's the style, it's the way it comes off. People will never look at him and think that's a shooter.
It's ugly. It's ugly, but it definitely
but it just goes in, man. Yeah, which is insane. So yeah, absolutely. When that three shooting, and when he's healthy, he's very aggressive. He'll go to the rim, he'll score. I think late game, he shoots 60% on twos, 41% on threes, leads the league on both categories for late game. So when he needs to and he chooses to, he's either going to kill you, and that's when teams collapse on him, and he's maybe the smartest passer in basketball. Just incredible with his left-hand, right-hand passes in rhythm. Will always hit guys with the laces perfect. When he's attacking and scoring, people collapse. He kills them in other ways. He's so good. I absolutely love having him.
So with all that in mind, with the playoff race, you guys are, I think, now 2 games behind Milwaukee.
Yeah.
What would be your ideal sort of like first round matchup? And would you rather play Milwaukee, or would you rather play Boston or Cleveland in the second round?
I don't think there is an ideal matchup because there's always. I want to say the Pistons because we seem to have played really well. It's also a mental thing. I was exhausted having series against the Bucks and Knicks. I'm not even playing. I'm just watching the games. I'm over it. I was so tired and gassed from just all the shit that was going on. Detroit. But then I feel like we were Detroit last year and they came out with nothing to lose. We came out with nothing to lose. Who wants to be up against that team? I'll take anything. I just want us healthy. If I was forced to choose, I'd pick Detroit just because of the unknown where I know Milwaukee's going to have Giannis. He's incredible. And Dame. I know the Knicks are a big grind-out team. Sure, we took down both of them last year, but as long as they are present, healthy, it can be very, very tricky series. And it's a series that takes a lot out of you. So that by the time you get to Boston, you get to Cleveland, you're wrecked. And it's just they're playing you, which is what happened to us by the time we got to the Celtics. We were 90% chance to win 3 games and just fell apart when it mattered. I think I'd pick Detroit, hope for the best, and then I'll take Cleveland in the second round. I think we have a similar kind of team to them, so it would be who comes out on top. Boston, let's avoid them for as long as possible. They're unbelievable. So
they're still my pick to come out the East. I think the Detroit match will be really interesting. Detroit is playing incredible basketball right now. I'd be really excited to see that too. I think like the New York is like your point too. That's a grueling series, a very distinct clash of styles. But Woody, I definitely appreciate you taking the time, man. Could you let people know where to find you?
NBA Woody or Wojar Test on Twitter is probably the easiest place. I post there. Same handle for TikTok and YouTube. Twitter's where I do more. X is where I do most of my stuff now. I still call it Twitter. I'll search for it as Twitter. Find me there. Thank you so much for having me, bro. Great to talk to you, and hopefully talk to you soon when the Pacers win by 20 on Saturday. That'll be nice.
Yeah, sure. So we'll see everyone back here Saturday when the Hawks blow out the Pacers by 56. And Young has 72. Y'all be safe. Hope you enjoyed. Please make sure you go follow Woody. He's a great guy. Keep on rooting for Dyson Daniels, and y'all be safe.